like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for January 9th, 2024 to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Happy New Year, everybody. Let's start with roll call tonight, please.
Walton,
Here.
Kimball,
Present.
Stephenson,
Here.
Schlethauer,
Here.
Hempy,
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
Okay. Next item is ceremonies, announcements, appointments, and presentations. And if you guys don't mind, we'll make one announcement here. Bobby Wilhelm, recently appointed by the City Council to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So he's starting tonight, so it'll be nice. Biggie Joe was unable to make it tonight, but we will have now a full commission. So that is nice because we haven't had that in a couple months. So, John, anything other than that to talk about?
Well, besides the commission adding a member, it's also a National Apricot Day. You may have seen some on the table on the way in, but yeah, apricots, they're good for your health. They contain about 17 calories and no fat, sodium, or cholesterol. They're a good source of vitamin A, vitamin C, and dietary fiber. So apricots are best kept at room temperature and only refrigerate when ripe. On average, apricot trees produce fruit for about 20 to 25 years.
Wow.
So there's some fun facts on apricots.
Cool. Good
So
to
that
know.
little package in there, is that for everybody or just one person?
We got to share.
Well, it was a modest approach. I didn't know the love for apricots, so at least now you can get
Okay.
some
A
flavor.
Get a
and-
taste anyway.
Yeah, some of the nutrition.
Yep. All right, thank you. Any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There's none.
Okay. Any declaration of conflict, ex parte contacts, or site visits from commission members?
No.
All right, seeing none, we'll move into the consent calendar.
Yeah, item A is the meeting minutes for the Planning and Zoning Commission dated December 12th, 2023. Item B is the Mullen Villas Special Use Permit, reason decision, file number SUP 232. Item C is the Post Falls Food Bank Special Use Permit, reason decision, file number SUP 233.
All right, hopefully everybody had a chance to review those in full in the packets. If so, anybody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Hempy,
Yes.
Schlethauer,
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
Wilhelm.
I wasn't part of the planning and zoning when that went on, so I'll abstain.
Next item is citizen issues. This section is on the agenda is reserved for any citizens wishing to address the commission on an issue that is not on the agenda tonight. Persons wishing to speak will have 5 minutes. Do we have any citizens? Seeing none. Moving right along. Unfinished or old business. John?
There is none.
All right. Now we'll move into public hearings. Tonight we have 2 of them. And the first one we'll open is Boyd's Landing, First Edition Subdivision. Open that and Ethan to present.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ethan Porter, one of the planners here with the city, to present Boyd Landing First Edition Subdivision, so SUBD-23-5. The owner of the property is Northern Lights Development, LLC. The applicant is Drew Dittman from Lake City Engineering, who's here tonight to present. And then they're requesting approval to subdivide approximately 4.87 acres into 19 single-family lots. That's within the single-family residential R1 zoning designation. Here you can see the project hatched in red there. It was previously annexed, and Boyd's addition is to the west that you'll see later on. But this property is just north of Bogey Drive and sitting in between Cecil Road running north and south and Greens Ferry Road north and south as well. So currently the land use is large lot single family home. The water provider is Ross Point Water District in this area. And then the city of Post Falls would be the wastewater provider. Looking at the zoning, You can see the yellow is R1 single-family zoning, basically surrounded, except that to the east, the county lot, single-family lot there to the east. The red you see is community commercial services, and that pink on the lower part is limited commercial. So ultimately, you can see this is surrounded by single-family homes and R1 zoning predominantly. Their subdivision plan is laid out here. You can see that they have a north-south road, which goes into a T running east and west. There's 19 single-family homes, as I mentioned, and then the lots are 60 feet or greater for the lot widths, and then the lots themselves are greater than or at 6,500 square feet. So they do meet that standard for planning as far as being compliant with the official bulk and placement table. Kind of looking at this a little bit more, you can see what I mentioned, Boyd's Addition previously approved, kind of looking at that road connection and how that all intertwines together. So the first addition there is on to the east there of Boyd's Addition, and you can see how that T connection actually lines up with the roadway for Boyd's Addition running east. So kind of helps get a better idea overall of how these roads are, connected and kind of make use of the transportation system. Boyd's Addition, you do see that northern road connecting to the north, which kind of shows you and leads into that Barton Loop section there, which is part of Corbin Meadows subdivision. So kind of looking at it holistically, we have the Millsap Landing again too, which is just south of Bogey, right across from Boyd's Landing First Edition. So this is just a general idea to kind of give you an idea of when they subdivide at different times, how that road connectivity is important, how we connect it up when you don't have a full master plan, but it kind of ends up looking like a master plan. So you can see that connectivity and that traffic circulation there and how that's going to kind of be accomplished. So going into the review criteria for the subdivision, we have the first one, looking at provisions for water supply system, making sure it's adequate and there's quantity and quality for the proposed subdivision. As outlined in the staff report, after staff discussion, water service to the project would be provided by the Ross Barn Water District, as I previously mentioned, and the city has received a will serve letter from them, so they would be able to serve this subdivision as proposed. Looking at the second review criteria, we look at provisions for public sewage system in the city of Post Falls, making sure that accommodate those proposed sewer flows. In the city of Post Falls, it does have adequate capacity to provide service to the subdivision as proposed, as outlined in the staff report by further staff review. Review criteria 3 looks at the streets, basically making sure they're consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. And staff commented that the subdivision and proposed layout is consistent with the city's transportation master plan and design standards. So kind of already hit on that a little bit with that overarching look on how that connectivity is all laid out. Review criteria 4 looks at the proposed subdivision, all the areas which may involve soil or topographical conditions, presenting hazards and making sure they're identified, and the proposed uses of these areas are compatible with such conditions. So at this time, there are no known soil or topographical conditions that have been identified as hazards, and the location is over the Ratchford Prairie Aquifer, just as a note. Review criteria 5 looks at the area proposed for subdivision is zoned for the proposed uses, and those uses conform to other requirements found in this code. So as I mentioned before, we have the R1 standard, we look at the lot widths, the lot sizes, and we look at kind of the layout of the road, and as well as just kind of making sure there's overall good circulation for traffic and making sure Title 17 can be met. And so the proposed lots and layout do comply, as staff reviewed, to the official bulk and placement table for that R1 zoning, and then it also aligns with their amended preliminary plat per Title 17. So. Review criteria 6, making sure that the community doesn't bear more than its fair share of costs for providing services and paying fees. Basically, this point is looking at the impact fees that are assessed at the building permit issuance. So all of the lots having a building permit for a home on them, they will pay impact fees for off-site improvements to impacts for parks, public safety, multimodal streets, public safety, that sort of thing. So those will be assessed at that time of building permit issuance. So it's kind of offset the cost for the community not bearing that. Agencies that this was routed to are listed above. Of these agencies, we basically, through the noticing process, received back the Yellowstone Pipeline Company, the Phillips 66. They commented no impact for them. Panhandle Health District said no jurisdiction. They have no jurisdiction with municipal systems. And then the Post Falls Police Department remain neutral. And then DEQ, they have no issues if they have that will serve letter. And for water and wastewater, so both the city as well as Ross Point is willing to serve that, so they don't have any issues. That would be the review criteria and kind of the subdivision proposal. I'll stand for any questions you have for staff at this point in time.
Anybody have any questions?
Is the development of the property just to the west, is that already being built? That 5-acre parcel just, yeah.
Correct, yeah, so
Yeah.
Boyd's first edition, or Boyd's addition, excuse me, that one you're meaning.
That one is already, okay. Oh, okay.
To my
And then
knowledge,
the-
I believe that is already being
Okay,
constructed.
okay, gotcha.
So. Any other questions?
Will the developer make any improvements to Bogey?
Yes, I believe that is outlined in the conditions of the
In the
staff report,
conditions,
as well
okay.
as their frontage improvements for the subdivision.
Okay.
So that is part of that requirement.
Any other questions? Thank you. I would like to invite the applicant up, Mr. Dittman.
Good evening, Chairman Stephenson, Commissioners. Drew Dittman, Lake City Engineering, 126 East Poplar Avenue in the city of Coeur d'Alene, for the record. Representing Northern Lights Development tonight. That is the development arm of Hallmark Homes. They are the ones who have developed and are building homes currently in that original Boyd's Landing phase, as Ethan had described. That phase is built, and they're currently building homes in there. They were able to purchase this property subsequently, and so going to use it as an extension of that project. Same developer, same builder. This is about as straightforward as a subdivision as you can get. Infill project, R1 zoning, completely surrounded by R1, 19 units on 5 acres. Ross Point Water, I was in front of their board this afternoon. They approved the project. Sewers by the city of Post Falls. It's a pretty straightforward project. So, questions for me?
Questions?
Nope, I don't have any.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item would be any public testimony. I do not see any public testimony. No need for rebuttal. Any final questions for applicant or staff before we close it out and do the criteria? Nope. All right, let's do the review criteria. So as we go through these, just each criteria state out what was in the packet as far as how each one of these is met. Chris, did you want me to read, or you read them, or what?
Chairman, if you'd like to go through, I'll just jump in if you need me to, if you'd
Sure.
like.
No problem. All right, review criteria number 1, definite provision has been made for water supply systems that is adequate in terms of quantity and quality for the type of subdivision proposed.
Yes, it's being serviced by Ross Point Water,
We have,
right?
right,
Yeah.
approved
Yep.
to Ross Point, whether we're good on that.
Yep. Number 2, adequate provisions have been made for a public sewage system and that the existing municipal system can accommodate the proposed sewer flows.
Yes, city sewer, and they've been, the city said they have capacity, so, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Criteria number 3, proposed streets are consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan.
They'll be widening Bogey, which is the collector, across their frontage, which is consistent with the transportation master plan. And their local streets provide the connectivity to the adjoining parcels for future connectivity as well as the existing streets. So it meets that part of the transportation master plan.
Okay. Thank you. Criteria number 4, all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil or topographical conditions presenting hazards have been identified and that the proposed use of these areas are compatible with such conditions.
Yes, there are none.
Yeah, not identified.
Nothing identified. All right, number 5. The area proposed for subdivision is zoned for the purpose used, and the uses conform to the requirements found in this code.
So it meets the requirements of the R1 zoning. All the lots meet the requirements with regards to square footage and lot width, and connectivity is taken care of. Everything else, there isn't any part of the code that it's in violation of.
All right. And criteria number 6, the developer has made adequate plans to ensure that the community will bear no more than its fair share of the cost to providing services by paying, furnishing land, or providing other mitigating measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, and other public facilities within the community. Is it that expectation that most cases off-site mitigation will be dealt through the obligation to pay developer impact fees?
This is a small enough project where impact fees are appropriate way to deal with any off-site mitigation and impacts to the greater community.
I think that's all of them. Any other thoughts? I think it's pretty straightforward. Is definitely infill, surrounded by R1 all around. Anything to add, Chris?
No, Chairman, I think you've covered it from our perspective. I think there's a recommendation for the motion options through the staff report for subdivision conditions, and I assume those conditions that are recommended are fairly standard for every subdivision. It doesn't seem like there's anything that needs specific identification.
Okay. With that in mind, I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve Boyd's Landing First Edition, finding that it meets the approval criteria contained in the Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberations. Criteria 1 through 6.
10?
10.
Or, sir, no. Criteria 1 through 6, adopting conditions 1 through 10.
Oh.
Contained in the staff report, and direct staff to prepare a reasoned decision.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We have a roll call, please.
Kimball,
Yes.
Hempy,
Yes.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Wilhelm,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Walton.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the next item. Next public hearing. Let's see, Arche Annex. We'll open up that public hearing.
Evening again, Commissioners. Ethan Porter, one of the planners here with the city. So here's Arche Annexation, case file ANNX-23-4. So looking at this, the owner is Arche Idaho LLC. The applicant is Olson Engineering, who's here tonight to represent. And their requested action is for that zoning portion for the recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission to recommend their proposed zoning to City Council, which is for a zoning designation of community commercial services, CCS, on approximately 14.7 acres as part of the annexation request into the city of Post Falls. So, again, we're not looking at the annexation tonight, we're just looking at the zoning request or recommendation to City Council. So, looking at the subject site, it is hashed in red, but it's small hatches, so it looks like it's highlighted in red. But that's the subject property there, north to southeast way. You can see it's east of Cedar Street, right along there, and then Highway 41 and I-90 interchanges there on the west of the property, further out there that you can see. So, looking a little bit more at this, the large lot residential is the current land use for this site. There are 2 parcels included with this request as well, and I believe there's 1 residential home on the 2 lots So one's vacant and one has an actual house on it. And so it's over the Ratchet Pear Aquifer, and there is a steep slope on the I-90 abutting side on that northern edge. So that would be just a point noted there, but not detrimental to this project. The water and wastewater would be provided by the city of Post Falls for this area. Looking at the surrounding zoning and land uses, to the north there, you have the I-90 right-of-way. Further north of that, that big yellow piece is the Highlands homes there. It's a R1 PUD, so it is buffered from that by I-90, as well as there's a steep slope there also. You can see the gray surrounding that subject site there, which is kind of outlined in black and shaded in a little bit. It's industrial zoning for the gray. So you have industrial, surrounded by industrial zoning. The red is going to be the commercial community services, CCS zone. And then again, that yellow and that orange and the kind of mustard looking yellow is also residential as well. So it's kind of fairly separate from all the residential in that area, separated by that I-90 as well as the railroad corridor. So surrounding it basically is just that industrial zone, and then it has some commercial there to the west, further out. And so kind of that's what you can see there. There's manufacturing company to the east. There's the right-of-way to the north and south for the roads, I-90 and Celtice, and then to the west you have a vacant industrial piece of property. So, looking at the review criteria, there's going to be 3, and the first one is the proposed zoning district consistent with the future land use map and focus area contained in the currently adopted Post Falls Comprehensive Plan. So the future land use designates this as business industrial, and so I'll show you on the next slide kind of that future land use map, calling it out, but this category provides for a mix of heavy and light manufacturing, warehousing, business park and service commercial uses in areas with existing industrial uses or other areas with suitable land and transportation access that are buffered from residential and other uses, typically seen as incompatible with industrial activities. So based on that, you can see here it's shaded there in the center and outlined in black, but that gray is going to be your business industrial, the red is future land use commercial, and then that kind of light yellow is low density residential. That kind of light orange to the west is more of a medium density residential for the future land use. And then that kind of orange far west there is that higher density residential. So you can see from this, it's pretty much surrounded by business industrial, as well as abutting some of that commercial looking towards the south, that Celtice and those properties are right across the way. So hopefully that gives you kind of a better idea for the future land use map. And then looking at the focus area, this would be in the Maplewood area as kind of shaded and outlined there. I highlighted the project location in the map there, but the Maplewood focus area highlights, as you can see there, those 3 that I highlighted. It's promoting infill development, it prioritizes infill annexations, and focuses provisions for multifamily, commercial, and industrial uses along Celtice Way, all of which I think are important pieces for looking at this proposal. Looking at the second review criteria, we have the proposed zoning district. Is it consistent with the goals and policies contained in the currently adopted Post Falls Comprehensive Plan that are relevant to the area under consideration? So kind of this goes into more detail in the staff report, but highlighting some of the goals and then going into the policies, we have goal 1 and 7, talks about the resilient economy and prosperity and the fiscal health of the city, and then obviously the types and quantities of land uses in Post Falls, making sure they're supporting the community needs for that long-term sustainability. Goal 12 would be, again, that fiscal health portion as well. So all those kind of may be in line with kind of your decision here tonight, but we look at the policies, the supporting land use patterns that basically enhance the community level of service, then long-term fiscal health again of the community, and then resident quality of life, maintaining or enhancing that, promoting compatible well-designed development, implement the goals and policy of the comprehensive plan, related master plans and or facility plans. So I'm going to go into a little bit more of these in the upcoming slides, but policy 1 and 2 are kind of the meat of the policies and kind of hashing them out. Policy 2 talks about that future land use mapping, which I just spoke on, the compatibility with surrounding land uses, also I mentioned previously, infrastructure and service plans and the existing and future traffic patterns. Those will be in the upcoming slides. So looking a little bit more at the policy 8 and 9, it goes in line with kind of what that Maplewood focus area discussed about the compatible infill development, as well as the annexation of county islands within the city of Post Falls. So I think both those are important as well. One, because bullet on policy 9 surrounded by incorporated areas, which this location would be, as well as having service infrastructure capacity readily available. So I think those are good points to bring up as well. That's what our comprehensive plan kind of states and outlines. Looking more so at the infrastructure and service plans, city's water and water reclamation systems have the capacity to provide service, and the city is willing to serve the property at the requested zoning proposal. So the future traffic patterns and existing traffic patterns, looking at Southeast Way as a classified principal arterial. The future traffic patterns to and from the site, there is a benefit for that connectivity right adjacent to Southeast Way. So there's a big benefit there, as well as the critical area corridor is identified right here by the KMPO as Southeast Way. So keeping that in mind also. Review criteria 2 continues with policy 24 and 26, basically protecting and transportation corridors, encroachment, and preserve the adequate rights-of-way for future corridors, including utility facilities. And then policy 26, maintaining that continuity of sidewalks and pedestrian networks and bicycle paths. So all this would be done too if they annex in and it turns out they want to develop the site. We get some frontage improvements as well as look at some of this stuff as far as being a benefit to the city, making sure there's connectivity with sidewalks along that frontage as well. So with those being stated, review criteria 3 looks at the proposed zoning that create a demonstrable adverse impact upon the delivery of services by any political subdivision providing public services within the city. So reaching out to our agencies, our public agencies, we reached out to them, noticed them, and then of this list, the comments we received back were the Yellowstone Pipeline Company not having any comment, and Panhandle Health District also no comment, and then the Post Falls Police Department, they remain neutral. So out of all those agencies, this is what we received back, none of which is a demonstrable impact that has been stated. So that being said, review criteria 3 looks to be met with no comments from this. So that being said, there's the zone change review criteria, and I will answer any questions you have for staff at this time.
Anybody have any questions?
A lot of the recent annexations that have come before us have been combined with a subdivision application. This one here, they're not sure what they want to do yet, apparently.
I'll let the applicant speak to that, but I don't believe we have a subdivision for this submitted, so I think it's just the annexation. And so there's possible lot consolidation or boundary line adjustments that can be done, but the applicant probably has more of an idea of what the owner wants to do than I do. So
Maybe it's just me with user error in this iPad here, but could you show a map of the city boundary? Just trying to see.
So let's get a better one here. So that darker outlined black line you can see is kind of where the limits is. Anything. So let's see. This would be
Everything around that black line is city?
so everything around it is all this. So this is an island here, and then out here is all county, and then county here.
So when this is annexed, that island will go away. So you see where the red is?
So everything around it is city.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, then the black, okay, I had to flip, okay. That's helpful, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Invite the applicant up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chair Stephenson, Jeremy Terzulli. I'm a land use consultant with a few different firms around town. Tonight specifically for Olson Engineering on behalf of the applicant Arche Idaho LLC. Just a couple of things before I get into it. Wanted to welcome Bobby Wilhelm to the commission. Happy to have you. Glad you're here. Secondly, I wanted to point out that on the website, this public hearing was listed first. I'm not sure how Lake City Engineering got in front of us, but I'm thinking I might launch a full investigation on how that happened and how I wound up behind Drew Dittman. But anyway, little
Save the
humor.
best for last.
It was the first edition.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to update the website because I made plans, John, but it's okay.
Sorry, man.
I'm joking with everybody. I'm glad we can have a sense of humor about this. Commissioner Schlotthauer, the reason there's no subdivision here, the piece to the west that's kind of shoehorned in there, that sort of Idaho-shaped piece, is also a part of this overall development. The current owner purchased all 3 parcels together. The plan is to have common ownership for the whole thing and do, in essence, sort of a business park throughout here, so it'll be common ownership. We plan to do some boundary line adjustments if a successful annexation occurs, and then there won't be any future subdivision. It'll be 3
And the
separate
west
parcels.
piece is already annexed in.
Yeah, the west piece is in the city. This is actually 2 parcels, the hatched area. It'll give us 3, and the topography of the site is such that it sort of creates 3 natural benches as you move from Celtice up to I-90. And we've done a little bit of preliminary calculations on the site and how to balance it, and it'll create sort of 3 distinct benches. Our intent would be, upon annexation, do those boundary line adjustments. It'll all be common ownership. Do your more traditional retail along Celtice. The middle part on that second bench would be more of, and that's kind of getting into some points that I wanted to bring up. The CCS zoning designation is the request because that'll allow us to do some of those warehouse office, warehouse retail hybrid. That is an outright allowed use in the CCS zoning, as opposed to if it were CCM, that would be a special use. So create sort of those shop, office, shop, retail, hybrid things in that second tier. And then the third tier up towards the highway, that's going to be the last phase, and that would be sort of market driven. We're just going to sort of wait and see on that piece. So hopefully that helps answer your question. I have very little to add to Ethan's staff report. I thought it was very thorough. I read it twice, started to prepare a presentation, and it was basically a bunch of redundancies to what was already stated. So I just wanted to maybe offer some of those clarifying points, mention the topography and what the overall master plan of the site was. Again, sort of think business park on that internal piece, sort of a smaller version of like Warren K and Hayden. Think Quad Park here in Post Falls. That's sort of the vision for that internal part, with more of that traditional retail along Celtice to help service a lot of the folks in Harborview, all of those rooftops south of here, retail, restaurant, those types of uses along Celtice. As far as review criteria number 3, I'd like to just offer a little opinion there that not only will this not have an adverse effect on services by any incorporated subdivision, but the annexation would also likely require dedication of water rights, as well as a utility easement along Celtice that doesn't currently exist, so it would actually probably help some of those service providers, the highway district, the water purveyor, those types of things. And then to summarize, the property is currently a county island. It could be considered a gateway property to the city of Post Falls. This is right where Celtice necks down from divided traffic to 2-way traffic. And so folks traveling west on Celtice from Coeur d'Alene, this kind of becomes sort of that entry point to the city of Post Falls. We've had some preliminary conversations with city staff about perhaps creating a trailhead to the bike path along the freeway. That would be downstream, but that'd be something we would be open to kind of help the Parks Department there. We believe that CCS is the appropriate zoning. It's supported by the comp plan as well as the surrounding uses. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Nope.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Nobody has joined us for any public comments, so no need for rebuttal. We'll close the hearing and go through the criteria. Just to remind everyone, we're just looking at the zoning. The annexation will go to city council with whatever zoning recommendation we give tonight. All right, review criteria number 1. Is the proposed zoning district consistent with the future land use map and focus area contained in the currently adopted Post Falls Comprehensive Plan?
Yes.
Yes. So it's already designated business industrial, so
Okay.
Right, so it's designated business.
seems like it
and-
fits.
Yeah, CCS is an implementing zone under that. And, yeah, so, yeah, it's an implementing zone under business industrial.
Okay. Number 2, is the proposed zoning district consistent with the goals and policies contained in the currently adopted Post Falls Comprehensive Plan that are relevant to the area under consideration?
Ethan went through this a lot, but
Yeah.
we focus on the fact that it is an island of county surrounded by a lot of Post Falls. It's a very internal island. And that focus should be given, priority should be given to those types of annexations. He goes through many different goals and policies. So, let's see, we can focus on a couple of them. Supporting land use patterns. Land use pattern in the Southeast Way corridor is business industrial, CCS type of uses. Transportation impacts, it's on an arterial. And so transportation impacts where business commercial should be located on high functioning and high classification roads such as Southeast Way. Infrastructure and service. So there's water and sewer right out front, so it absolutely makes sense from that standpoint that it can be served without having extensive infrastructure extended to it. I already talked about policy 9 already, and 8, which is encouraging infill. Policy 5, directing the location of commercial shopping centers near arterials, which is Southeast Way. There's a whole bunch more in there.
Goal
And-
12 is kind of a big one, promoting the long-term fiscal health of the city and giving businesses an opportunity to find a home there and place to employ.
Right. There might be a lot of business, commercial, or CCS properties out there that are vacant, but it's important to realize that not all of them are for sale or available for development.
Sure.
And there are some properties, but there aren't many buildings. So if they're gonna put up a bit of a park there, I think.
Right.
It'll be popular.
Yep. Cool. Thank you. Number 3, does the proposed zoning district create any demonstrable adverse impact upon the delivery of services by any political subdivision providing public services within the city?
There weren't any presented.
We're not
None
any
identified.
presented. Yep. All righty. Anything else? Any other comments for the good of the order for there?
You know, I like this. It's just too bad we already gave our one approval for the night in Lake City.
They were supposed to
Oh, well.
first, too.
Yeah. Of course, this isn't an approval. This is just a recommendation. So I guess we could do that.
Yep.
We can do a recommendation.
All right.
I
Who-
think,
who-
I
oh,
think
go ahead.
that it's a better use, what they're doing now, the CCS, than the business industrial there. So I think a lighter use would be better there with all that traffic and across the street where all the housing people come in through. So I think it's a better use for it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Okay, I will give her a shot. I move to recommend a CCS zoning for the Arche Annexation, file number ANNX-23-4, finding that that zoning meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberations, and direct staff to prepare, would it be, that recommendation for City Council?
Very good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Kimball,
Yes.
Hampe,
Yes.
Stephenson,
Yes.
Wilhelm,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Walton.
Yes.
All right. That'll move on to City Council. Next item is administrative or staff reports.
There's none.
None. Any commissioner comments? I'll just say Ross, and I know Vicky Jo's not here, but they were both reappointed, so thank you for continuing to serve. And everyone else, Nancy, Ray, and Kibby, thank you for, I don't know much longer your terms are, but thank you for continuing. And welcome, Bobby. Anybody got anything else?
Nope, heading for the apricots.
There you go. All right.
Happy New Year, everybody.
What's the next motion?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All righty.